A big warm welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about trajectory with irons. Hitting those low ones, hitting the high ones. It's an art form that for many a year has really confused golfers. So there's the 7-iron, there's the high one at 92 feet in the air. And then that moment when you're really looking for a very low ball flight, taking it down some 30 feet in the air, driving it and pushing it forwards, a loft differential of quite substantial, almost 10 degrees there. We've been wowed by this, and there are a few ways that you might want to consider when you're changing the flight characteristics. Today, we are simply talking about height. Height of the golf shot. Now look, in old money, when we used to try to keep the ball flight down, and that's really the one that we all tend to want to play with as golfers, is when we're playing into the wind. Now previously, or what a lot of golfers have tended to want to do, just drop the golf ball back, hit down on it, hit down on the head of the golf ball more, and you can see that ball really comes out low. Dynamic loft there of some 13 degrees, almost just south of a 3-wood loft. But really, at 11 degrees of downstrike, we've put a lot of the energy down into the floor. I can make that golf ball really take off super low. Gone a little bit left that one, but you can see that my angle of attack is almost half, only 5 degrees down compared to the 11, but I've produced a dynamic loft angle of 15.8 degrees. Again, there's one there that's quite low, attack angle of 5 degrees, again, angle of attack, loft angle of 19 degrees. So there are very different ways of playing this shot, and that's what I really want to share with you today. First of all, as I say, we're going to talk about the low shot. What you need to consider is ultimately we are trying to produce this golf club or deliver this golf club back with less loft. Where we've applied ourselves in the past at striking more down on the golf ball, a more descending angle of attack, an angle of attack that looks more like this, where the club is descending more acutely. It will, by virtue of you driving the club into the floor, put the handle a long way forwards of the golf ball. But as I say, you're now making all of the energy go too much into the deck. And when it goes too much into the floor, yes, you do squash the ball flight, but as I say, you take away the energy towards the target. So my advice to you is, if push comes to shove, of course, move the ball back and drive the club into the deck. But when you do that, make sure that you don't fall in the divot afterwards. Today, understanding that we can create a reduction in a loft angle at strike by creating a handle lean forwards, but still creating an angle of attack that's very light, which is why you see on this last shot here how the angle of attack was down at 4.2 degrees, but yet we've got a dynamic loft angle at 16.5. First things first, I want you to really understand that the golf ball does not need to move back in your stance. Keeping the golf ball, and for a 7-iron, my ideal placement for the golf ball is underneath your left ear. Now, as you move the handle more forwards, we must understand that the gap between the head and the floor will become far, far greater, because for every degree the handle gets pushed forwards of the golf ball and the club head isn't back, you can see the club head starts to rise up off of the floor. So therefore, when I'm trying to make the golf club strike the ball with lots more shaft lean, I'm going to need to feel pre-strike much, much lower to the ground. And here's the bit that becomes really quite weird. I'm actually feeling, because I've created this excessive shaft lean, I'm now actually trying to feel an upstrike on the golf ball. It's a weird one. I'm actually trying to feel like I'm making the low point of the golf swing pre-strike and a rising up feeling through contact. This rising up feeling through contact helps with the spin and helps keep the attack angle light. So if I demonstrate in slow motion here, I would actually feel like my club head is rising up on the golf ball as I strike it, rather than hitting down on the golf ball. Let me see if I can get TrackMan to measure one of those. So let's go one more time. Going to rise up through strike with plenty of shaft lean, and we can see that the angle of attack on that one was actually up 0.5. So therefore, I managed to drag the dynamic loft down, keep the angle of attack shallow, which would then take down the spin rate. I don't like to have too many boxes up on the screen here when I'm demoing to get too confused, but you can appreciate if I'm hitting it with only 11.8 degrees of dynamic loft, and I haven't got much of a downstrike, in fact I've got half a degree rising up, that ball flight's going to be knuckling. And this is when you hear about people hitting knuckle ball flights. This is what they're trying to do. They're trying to reduce their angle of attack, reduce their dynamic loft to make the ball come out low and with low spin. So when I now go ahead and hit this, I'm trying to create the shaft lean. I'm trying to create the rise up, which will give me that low dynamic loft, that low angle of attack, and that low ball flight that's going forwards. So how do I create that shaft lean that I'm talking about down through strike? Now for me, the way I do it, and I've actually discussed this where people have talked about bowing their left wrists for their standard shot, I actively do that now. So as I move the golf club away, because of my hold, it's on the stronger side of life. And if you've been a follower of the channel, and incidentally, if you're watching this channel, 55% of you are not subscribed. So if I'm giving you a little bit of a tip in your game, and I've helped you hit lower scores, share back some love. Hit the subscribe button while you're here. Would be hugely appreciated. So with the stronger side of life grip, as I move the golf club back, I'm actually trying to feel like my right hand stays a little bit more on top of the golf club, which will then make me feel like as I shift the handle more forwards, which incidentally is coming from more pressure down, not driving the handle forwards, more pressure down, it allows me to square the face up, because obviously if I push the handle forwards, the loft opens up. As I push the handle forwards, I need to make sure that the loft stays straight for me. So when I make almost a preset sensation on the way back here, where I turn the face down, I can now hold that pressure on the shaft and manage almost the upstrike through contact to balance out the amount of shaft lean, the amount of rise up that it feels like through strike, which will still create the draw and the low spin rate. This is to make the shot effective. This is to make the shot still have energy. If you go about just dropping the ball back and whacking down on it, you will take energy off the golf ball and you will lose out ultimate distance. So once I've set myself up, ball position stays exactly the same. I really start to try to turn the loft down and make my right hand feel like it's staying on top of the golf club. Right hand stays on top of the golf club. And then, as I say, I'm now going to hold on to that shaft lean by keeping the pressure on the handle, move around the golf ball. And as I'm doing so, I'm really feeling the sensation of rising up on the golf ball rather than down on the golf ball. Again, makes the ball flight come out low, attack angle light as well, with some good spin rate. So that's how we apply ourselves with the lower shot. Now, the high shot, you need to have a few things in place to allow this to work out for you. Obviously, you wouldn't want to be playing into the wind because a higher ball flight invariably will have more spin rate, and if you've got more spin rate and you're hitting a high shot, you're going to sacrifice some distance. So be cautious of that. And secondly, you want to make sure that the lie is good. To hit the golf ball high, our angle of attack needs to be really quite light. So the angle of attack that we saw, and I demonstrated earlier when you drop the ball back and hit down at 11.5 degrees, that angle of attack now becomes more shallow. We don't want it to be so aggressive. And because of that, we need a decent lie to be able to hit that shot. To hit the ball high, we have to meet the club and the handle, the club head and the handle, a little bit more lined up rather than having too much shafting. So if we're going to make that club head swing a little bit more down at the bottom of the ball, there are two things that you might want to consider when you're playing this shot. If you are playing golf with a stronger grip, which I hope you are doing, do check out my ultimate grip guide. If you're playing it with a stronger hold, as you are making the club head catch up with the handle, you are going to want to make sure that that left wrist feels like it's got a little bit more cup in it. Because as the club swings past you, if you turn the left wrist down or you flatten the left wrist, as the club head swings past you, it's going to point the loft too far left. And I'll demonstrate that if you do take away the angle of attack and you do let the club head turn over, you can see you're going to end up with a ball that's bending too far to the left. The reason why that hasn't gone too high is because I've got 8.5 degrees of close club face to the path, which takes down the loft, which takes down the ball flight, takes down the spin rate, which is why it's not the high soft shot that we're looking for. So as I unloaded the golf club there, I still allowed the toe to turn. So as I unload the golf club this time, I want to feel like that left wrist has some cup in it, which then points the loft a little bit more up to the sky. So this is all for you golfers out there that have got the stronger grip, which I would actively encourage. So now as I unloaded that golf club, I felt like my left wrist had a little bit more cup in it, and now you can see I've really got some lovely flight on that, 116 feet, which is significantly higher than a stock 7-iron, which I will now play for you. That's my stock 7-iron, 3.5 degrees of downstrike, 100 feet in the air. You can see that I've found 16 odd feet of ball flight, which will give me a better land angle, a little bit more spin rate, and it will make the ball stop a little quicker. So let's see if we can take that angle of attack down to 0. And for every degree I'm thinking about taking the angle of attack away, I'm going to feel like I'm going to open that face up a little bit more with the use of that cupping. And I'm really feeling how that right hand is trying to expand the arc back here so that that club unloads, cups it in the left wrist, which then adds the flight into the golf ball. So really feeling like I'm throwing it away there. Didn't quite add the loft that I needed to make it go a little higher, but I certainly took away the angle of attack. A little bit more in there, down at the bottom, 120 feet of ball flight. So you can see what that ball flight increase, or how it occurs when you've got a face angle that's not closed over. It really makes a big impact on the ball flight. Okay, so come on, Stuart, let's see if we can get a nice straight one here that's high. Lovely. So 25 degrees of dynamic loft, got 113 feet of ball flight with a light angle of attack. And then, as quick as a flash, without taking any more divot, we're really feeling how the face can turn down, that rising up sensation through strike. We take the loft down, we take the ball flight down, we kept some angle of attack there, yet we still hit a little draw. So there's a couple of ways that you can go about hitting these different ball flights. but with the low one is the one that really we don't want to be hitting it low but creating lots of spin, and the way I've discussed there will really knock the ball flight down but also not make you dig a dirty deep divot and increase your spin rate. And then the high one, as long as you're hanging out with the stronger side of life with your golf grip, the unloading of the golf club will really help you. And if you are someone that tends to have a little bit of a slice, that unloading of the golf club to hit the higher ball flight will actually counter a little bit of fade for you as well anyway. If you've enjoyed that, do hit the like button. Ask me any questions that you might have about anything that I've discussed there today. I've really enjoyed that, and I think you'll find that's good coaching.